There are chapters that tell a story, and then there are chapters that transform a story into destiny. The third chapter of the prophecy, In the Sign of the Lady of the Roses, undoubtedly belongs to the second category. Here, the novel makes a decisive narrative and spiritual leap. What was wonder becomes responsibility. What was vision becomes conflict, and what was personal faith becomes collective event. After the initial meeting and the revelations of the previous chapters, the third chapter represents the moment when the prophecy truly begins to manifest itself in the real world, generating concrete consequences, fears, divisions, and hopes. It is the chapter of the first true test. The chapter opens with the mysterious travelers' return to the clearing, 2 weeks after their first encounter. But this time, the atmosphere is profoundly different. It's no longer just curiosity. There's anticipation, tension, and fear. The villagers approach cautiously, the authorities observe, and the priest stays aside. The clearing becomes a theater suspended between faith and suspicion. Mariéta, Rosita, and Toni are no longer just curious children. They've changed, more mature, more aware, more responsible. Their psychological evolution is one of the chapter's most powerful elements. The prophecy doesn't just enlighten them, it transforms them internally. When the traveler appears suspended in the sky, the event takes on an extraordinary symbolic and spiritual significance. It is no longer just an encounter, but a manifestation. The silence, the amazement, the fear, everything contributes to creating a cinematic and deeply emotional scene. At this point, the novel demonstrates one of its greatest strengths, the fusion of science fiction and spirituality. The traveler is not an angel, but neither is he a mere astronaut. He is something new, something that challenges traditional categories. And that's precisely what makes the chapter so powerful. One of the chapter's most powerful moments is when the traveler entrusts Mariéta with a small vial to deliver to a woman desperate for her son's health. The gesture is simple, yet charged with meaning. It's not show, it's not power, it's compassion. This episode marks a fundamental turning point. Prophecy is no longer just words, it becomes action. The woman accepts the vial, and with it, she also accepts hope. This moment represents the essence of the novel: faith as a choice, hope as a human act, light as a shared responsibility. And it is precisely here that the reader understands that the story is not just about the 3 children or the traveler. It is about everyone. But the third chapter isn't just about light. It's also the chapter where shadow first appears. Mariéta speaks of a disturbing presence, red eyes in the night, a force that watches and threatens. The traveler confirms, light inevitably attracts darkness. This revelation completely changes the tone of the novel. The prophecy is no longer merely spiritual, it becomes epic. The reader senses that the story is entering a broader, deeper, more dangerous dimension. The conflict is no longer merely internal or social. It becomes cosmic, symbolic, universal. And it is here that the novel acquires the structure of a great saga. The miracle and the presence of the traveler divide the village into 2 groups: the believers and the fearful. On one side, those who hope; on the other, those who fear. This division represents one of the most realistic and mature elements of the chapter. Prophecy does not unite immediately. First divide. First he tests. This narrative choice adds depth and credibility to the story. Not everything is simple, not everything is bright. Faith in this novel is a difficult journey. The third chapter culminates with a tragic event: the mysterious death of a young villager found with inexplicable scars and a frozen fear on his face. This moment represents the chapter's most powerful narrative turning point. The shadow is no longer just a presence. It became real. Tensions rise, the village becomes even more divided, and the 3 children realize their mission has only just begun. At this point, the reader can no longer turn back. 1. It marks the true beginning of the prophecy. This chapter turns the story into a mission. 2. Introduce the main conflict. Light and shadow finally enter the scene. 3. It deepens the characters. Mariéta, Rosita, and Toni grow emotionally and spiritually. 4. Expands the narrative world. The village, the church, the authorities. Everything is moving. 5. Increase narrative tension. The pace picks up and prepares for the next chapters. The Prophecy, in the Sign of the Lady of the Roses, is a novel that achieves something rare, combining science fiction, spirituality, history, and emotion. It's a story about faith, but without dogma. It speaks of hope, but without naivety. It speaks of light, but without ignoring the shadows. It is a novel that moves between interstellar, mystical apparitions and great epic sagas, but maintaining an original and deeply emotional voice. The third chapter, in particular, demonstrates that this isn't just a great narrative idea, but a story with a truly epic scope. And when you reach the end of the chapter, one thing becomes clear. The prophecy has begun. The shadow moves, and 3 children are about to change the fate of the world.